Hello, everyone. I'm Melanie Taylor Coombs. I'm the head of adult services at MacArthur Library. And the year before the pandemic, we started partnering with Holly Culleton at Biddeford Gardens. And it has been a fantastic endeavor. We've really enjoyed that partnership. And we're really looking forward to some of the events and the things that we have planned for the summer. We're just really looking forward to seeing Biddeford green and in bloom. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to her to introduce our speaker tonight, Wendy Johnson.
Thank you, Melanie, for having us. And like you, I'm super excited about this Biddeford Garden Series this year. And I'm super anxious to get out into the gardens. To start us off this month, we have invited Wendy Johnson to come and talk to us about herbs. Wendy, some of you may know, was a longtime staffer at New Morning, and she prepared food there and helped you with medicinal herbs and other things that New Morning offered. She's also an avid gardener and actually a professional gardener and a massage therapist. And welcome, Wendy. And I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Holly. How is everybody?
Great.
Yeah, great. Nice. So the topic tonight is how to choose the right herbs for you. So it is a very individual choice. A lot of research goes into choosing, but I can give you a lot of things to think about and some resources at the end, a list of resources. Any questions you have, just ask anytime you want. So why did I choose this subject? Well, it's spring, and every spring comes around and I get overexcited. And every time I go to the garden center to buy my herbs, I just fill my cart overflowing. And then I get home and I'm like, where am I going to put all this? And so a lot of the time, some of them get sidelined or given away. And to prevent that, I hope some of the things that I talk about tonight or give tips and suggestions on will save you money, time, and energy that way. Because I'm sure I'm not the only gardener that goes overboard this time of year. Yes, so it's overwhelming as well and overexciting. And then questions to ask yourself when you go to look up what herbs that you want to plant for yourself. What am I looking for in that plant? Will I actually use this herb? What are my favorite go-tos when cooking or searching for a natural remedy? Why do I want this particular plant? And of course, if you answer just because I love it, then go for it, because that will be the most used herb in your whole garden. All right, so when I'm choosing an herb, a lot of the times I go for the energetics of the plant. And this is going to sound really weird, but in my experience, it holds true. The plants are actually choosing you often. When you're drawn to a particular plant, that usually, or the plant is drawn to you, that usually means that you actually need the medicinal value of that plant. So just keep that in mind, keep an open mind about it. I've had it happen several times when my immune system was down. I've never grown elderberry, and one year, and I've never had it in my yard, and the year that I needed it, it showed up. I had 5 bushes pop up one spring. That's just a small example of how the plants actually come to you when you ask for them, or they hunt you down. So slide 2. So the considerations when you're planning your garden, available space. What is the available space that you have? Do you have a garden plot in your yard? Do you have yard? Do you want just to grow them on a fire escape or on a front porch or stoop in pots? Do you have a windowsill? If you're just in an apartment building and you have no space, if you have sunny windowsills, there's quite a bit that you can grow even in those. Usage, what do you want to use the plant for? What is speaking to you? Are you looking for well, the culinary herbs speak for themselves. So the medicinals, are you having trouble with your immune system, your digestive system, your respiratory system? All those herbs are out there and they affect each part of those bodies, but they also affect your whole body. They help tone your whole body. So what are you using it for? What do you need it for? Be pretty specific. It's an individual choice. Color, texture, size, and shape of the plant. Also, you know, how much space is it going to take up? What the color is. Do you like that color? Do you want it with this color, like purple with yellow, or just all whites? So find out what the blooms are and then group them how you like it. The size and shape is also a consideration. So is it a really tall plant like Angelica can grow up to 6 feet tall, or is it a ground cover like chamomile or thyme? And then there's light, water, and soil requirements. What does the plant need in order to thrive? Basically, it's pretty self-explanatory. The longevity of the plant. So when you're planting your outdoor in the yard garden, there are perennials and annuals. Perennials are pretty permanent, and annuals you put in every year unless they self-seed. And then 6, growth habits, which pretty much goes with number 3 as well. So what is the growth habit? How big does it get? Is it a shrub? Is it a tree? Is it a spiky, long-legged plant like cilantro when it goes to coriander? Or is it, you know, bushy like lemon balm and low growing? Okay, slide. Next slide. So we'll hit on each of those individually. So available space. This is an example of a windowsill garden. I love that, actually. It's beautiful. And you can see how much you can actually get just from potted herbs. You can, and if you clip them, they keep coming. So keep that in mind. So how much space do you realistically have? And then accordingly, choose what type of gardening you'll want to do. In the ground, raised beds, containers, a porch, a windowsill, fire escape, or 20 acres. And then it's helpful, really helpful, once you figure out realistically what space that you have, to draw it up to scale and just sketch it out on graph paper or on regular paper with a scale so that you can measure what each plant is going to need, because each plant is either wider or smaller. Some you can shove together, some need a lot of space. Next slide. The culinary herbs, they open up your senses to flavor, texture, and scent. This is also a personal choice. What flavors, what smells, what textures do you like? There are quite a few that are amazing, actually. Have you ever walked through a garden where there are rows and rows of basil and have just the scent fill the air? Rosemary does the same thing. I just love it. It changes. It seems to change your whole mood when you do that. So these plants add depth to soups and sauces. They complement meat dishes and quite literally add spice to everyday meals. Different herbs appeal to you for various reasons, and these reasons are listed here. Which ones do you use regularly in your cooking? So you're going to want to really think about that. Which ones am I actually going to use, especially if you have a small space? Are there any you don't use but love for other reasons and simply must have? Rosemary is an example for me. Rosemary I never use in cooking, or very rarely, because the needles, it almost is like a pine tree to me. So I don't like it. I grind it if I use it in cooking. In a coffee grinder, you can powder it and add it to soups and stews. But as it is, I just don't like the texture, but I can't live without the smell. I just can't. I have to, every time there's a rosemary plant, I run my hands right through it and I breathe it in and walk and breathe it in. It's just a great herb I won't live without. And a good tip is to plant them close to the kitchen. That way you can just step out and pick them, and you'll use them more regularly if they're very available. Next slide. Here's a simple list of the most commonly known kitchen herbs. And there's that tip about the kitchen garden. That's how it was always traditionally done in like 500 years ago. They always had culinary herbs planted right outside their door. Each one contains its own unique flavor and lends itself nicely to everyday use. If you have a particular one, you can grow extra to dry or freeze. I make a lot of pestos. I hardly ever use parsley either, but it's a great pesto plant. So I'll make a ton, I'll grow a ton of parsley and turn it into pesto, freeze them in ice cube trays, pop them into plastic baggies, and then all winter long, you just throw them in your soups and stews and bring that summer back to your winter. If you're tight on space, you can get continuous growth from all of these herbs if you just keep clipping them back. Don't ever let them go to flower if you want them to stay. Just keep picking the flowers off. Once a plant goes to flower and goes to seed, it's done with its life cycle. So look over your favorite recipes. Imagine how the culinary herb will fit into your life. And if its energy uplifts you, go for it. Next slide.
I've got a question.
Yep.
Wendy, what would you recommend for a variety of thyme for a ground cover?
Woolly
Just,
thyme. Woolly thyme
woolly
is
thyme.
really good for that. Yep.
Okay.
Most thymes are really good for ground cover, but the woolly one is the lowest growing. It's kind of scrubby.
Mm.
Yeah, it doesn't go up at all. It just goes along the ground.
Okay. Thank you.
And so this is where we come to the medicinal herbs. And where am I? Sorry. So are you interested in making your own teas, oils, salves, tinctures, other remedies? What's important to you specifically? Is there an ailment or an area of weakness in your body you'd like to mend? Are you interested in making your own moisturizers or skincare? So you think about all that, and then you go to the books, the library, or you get on the internet and you research which herbs are specific. Say if you have a lung problem and you've always had respiratory and your lung is your weakness, mullein is a fantastic herb for your lung. It actually helps repair them. There's tons of respiratory herbs out there. Heart, there's hawthorn. That's a tree, so you're going to want to have a yard if you plant hawthorn. Those are just some examples. And then adding herbal teas daily can enhance your quality of life. They are highly nutritious, containing polyphenols, vitamins, and minerals for overall health and rejuvenation. Next slide. Wild edible weeds. Don't pull your weeds out, or at least let some of them, identify them first, and then let some of them take the space in between plants. If they show up, like I said earlier in the beginning of this, if they show up, it usually means to me that it's speaking to you, that there's something that that particular plant holds that you might be able to use. And some of those examples here are chickweed, cleavers, purslane, lamb's quarters, which is fantastic in salads. It's a little milder than spinach. Sorrel has a lemony flavor, and it grows crazy wild all over. There's a few kinds in this area. Dandelion, of course, red clover. Yes, so where am I? when these lovely ladies show up, don't pull them out at, like right off the bat. Just let them go and then research which ones they are, identify them, and see if you want to use them. You might want to use them, and then you have a free plant.
Wendy, I'm wondering, I've been learning a little bit about some of the weeds in the community garden areas. And one of the things that found very surprising was the Japanese knotweed.
Oh, yes.
And how, you can eat, you eat the new shoots as they come out of the ground in the spring. The leaves, I believe, are edible as well, right? So you can make teas and even put them in salads, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very careful to look at, investigate before I start yanking out weeds, because some of them could be very beneficial, So, yeah.
Yes, and knotweed in particular is really great for, in fact, this year, I think I'll make some tinctures. I just was diagnosed with Lyme, and resveratrol is one of the plants that they've proven that actually kills the Lyme bacteria.
Oh.
And the number one source of resveratrol is knotweed.
You're kidding me.
No. So if you go to the health food store, the natural food store, and you're looking for resveratrol, read the label. If it says Japanese knotweed on it, then you've got something that's actually going to help kill the Lyme bacteria.
Wonderful to know.
So don't look at weeds as weeds anymore. They're actually super plants. Okay, next slide. Okay. So these are your medicinal herbs. Everybody here knows what a medicinal herb is, right? So what do you want to use the medicine for? Like, what are you looking for? As I said before, do you have a weakness in your digestive system where you need something that's going to calm it? So there's fennel, and there's dandelion for urinary tract, and there's what is the one that I use? Chamomile is actually a really good digestive herb. Look for herbs that are bitter for your digestive tract. And then there's, other systems in the body, the immune system. There's elderberry and echinacea. Those are awesome herbs for all of that. Let me see.
Wendy.
Yes.
Can you follow up on, I would love to know if there's any kind of teas that I could use for digestive health. Like, is
Fennel.
there anything that
Put fennel seeds, just fennel seeds, pour boiling water over them and let them sit for about a half an hour before you drink it. Fennel is such a great digestive. It's really good for you. If you have problems with the mucus lining, things like marshmallow or slippery elm are really good for rebuild. Licorice. Licorice can contraindicate with high blood pressure medicine. So look for the DGL licorice in chewable form instead of tea. But yeah, so chamomile, fennel, licorice, marshmallow are all excellent digestives.
That's probably not like the kind that you toast on the campfire.
No, it's not. Those might cause you to have problems. No, marshmallow is actually a beautiful plant to grow. It looks like a hollyhock, only the leaves are a little smaller and the flowers are smaller, but it's stunningly beautiful. And the root is very hard to dig out. It goes on and on forever. It grows really long, but it's just beautiful. It's an ornamental plant too. Marshmallow is more so known for its ornamental. People don't actually know that they're actually growing medicine. So
Thanks, Wendy.
Yep, you're welcome. So research is incredibly important, and I can't stress it enough. You don't want to end up ingesting anything that could cause you more harm than good. So know your body, and then research what herbs are going to help with that particular weakness that you might have. And then identify. Don't put anything in your mouth if you don't know what it is. There's a lot of natural plants out there that will actually kill you. So I can't stress research enough. And at the end, there's lots of resources, and I have tons more if you want of places to go for that particular research. And you can have so much fun making your own stuff. I mean, now you're taking responsibility for your health. And there's also a whole lot of recipes to use. It's just so much fun. You can use herbs in vinegars, in tinctures. So alcohol, it should be 90 proof plus in order to be the solvent that's needed to extract the properties of the herb, the healing properties. You can use some of them with glycerates, which is a lot sweeter, vegetable glycerin. It's sweet, so holy basil is so delicious. Roses are so delicious. And lemon balm are my three favorites for the vegetable glycerates. You can make teas, and you don't have to use just one single herb in a tea. You can make a whole, you can bring on a whole bunch of herbs. And then face creams or body lotions, oils. I'm a massage therapist, so I make my own medicinal oils to use in my practice. I have one going now with juniper and ginger and rosemary. All are good for pain relieving and muscle relaxants and anti-inflammatories. It's so much fun. Once you start going, you're just going to become an addict like the rest of us. I just know it. So, so have fun, enjoy it, do a lot of research, and the next one. Where are we? Are we there?
Slides you need.
Or is it one back? Oh, okay. I do want to do, yes. So to talk about a little bit more about the herbal remedies, my favorite are the full body tonics, the good herbs for that, especially this time of year to clear the stagnation out of you from winter, are nettles. Stinging nettles are fantastic. If you grow them in a separate area, because one, they do sting. They feel like those biting red ants. They're pretty good if you have arthritis in your hand. If you want to just have them stung, it actually helps with that. They're very high in vitamins and minerals. And the other tonic herbs I use this time of year are dandelions, and violets, angelica, and lemon balm. Holy basil, they all help clear out toxins, move energy, calm and balance the nervous system, and restore vibrancy. They're really great. I would just drink 4 cups a day, and it will just really help your whole body. There are tons of possibilities. So just do your research, make it very personal. It's a very personal journey. Each individual body has its own unique requirements. Yep, and then just start planting. Slide 9. Color, texture, size, and shape. So that's in this particular picture, why I chose it is because it shows the variety that herbs can bring to your garden. I like to just sit down and daydream about what I want in my garden, and then I close my eyes and I just picture each plant and how I'm going to layer the garden, because gardens are layered. So the color, of course, you just pick what you want, and you can put them, group them that's all a very personal thing. It's a preference. But the texture and the size, do you want a feathery next to a bold, or do you want like a lacy garden with all like Queen Anne's lace, chamomile, and fennel are all like feathery? And then there's the size. Some, like I said, Angelica's 6 feet. Chamomile is about 3 inches off the ground. It can grow straight up to almost 12 inches, they say, but I've never had that luck. I only get smaller ones. And then there's thyme. It's a great ground cover. Chives are kind of in between, and they have beautiful purple flowers. I like lemon balm as a mound. It's just a perfect little mound. And so I put that in between the ground cover and the super tall plants. Yep. So each plant has its own personality. They're vibrant or bold, feathery or tough. So go wild and just have fun with it. It's so much fun designing the garden. When you start drawing it out to scale and you start realizing that you do your research and you find out, this plant grows 24 inches wide and 3 feet high. And then this one grows 6 inches wide and about 4 inches off the ground. You'll be able to, when you put it to scale, really know how many herbs you can put in that one spot, and then have it well laid out before you start digging. And then you won't have to move them around afterwards. Like one they'll mature and you'll find out, oh, well, that's shading that plant. I have to move it. So it's good to know how they grow and what they look like. And yeah. Okay, next slide.
Wendy, I was just going to share a quick little story from my garden.
Yes.
So the first year we were on Highland, I planted a little, long garden bed on the sunny side of the house. And I planted 3 lavenders as border plants, bee balm, echinacea, and a couple of other things. And I assumed that they wouldn't fill out to full size until maybe a couple of years down the road. Well, then last year, the second year of the garden, I mean, they were like competing with each other. And I mean, my lavenders were like, 3 feet across, and my bee balm was encroaching on the echinacea, and it was like a war in the garden. But it was freaking gorgeous. It was just so beautiful. So now I got to thin all those things out this year.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Pass them on to friends.
That's right.
Yeah. So when I get to the perennials, which we will in a minute,
Okay.
That story's great for that. Because perennials, although they're permanent, you will have to, over the years, cut them and give them away or make a new garden and put them there. That's a great story. Thanks, Holly. So we're on to light soil and water requirements. When considering the needs for water, soil, and light and space, the plant, wait a minute. For the plant's needs, think of where it naturally grows, what its native habitat is. Finding this out, it will give you a clear idea of what they're going to need. So in your culinary herbs, I did a lot of research this afternoon, and I found out most of them, if not all of them, come from the Mediterranean, North Africa, up to the Adriatic Sea on the eastern shore. There is a huge variety in geographical landscape there, but for the most part, it's dry, really hot during the summer, and incredibly sunny. So there are a couple of exceptions about that, but overall, most of those culinary herbs that everybody grows, rosemary, parsley, thyme, oregano, all come from that area. They don't like their feet wet. Although parsley and basil can take more water than, say, rosemary or oregano, they don't particularly care about deeply nutrient soil. It really helps to have it for certain plants. They do thrive, but it's not necessary. They love loamy, sandy, well-drained soil. So when you're doing your research, make sure you understand that. So you're not planting like oregano next to parsley necessarily, because parsley is going to desire more water than oregano is. And oregano will die if it's overwatered, and so will sage. Sage really hates its feet wet. Good resources on plant requirements are found on the web at the Farmer's Almanac and a website called The Spruce. Just type in the plant and The Spruce will put it up with all its, like in a bullet point, what it needs. So those two resources are great. Most of your seed catalogs will also tell you what the plant needs as you're growing it. All right, slide 11. Longevity, is it a perennial or an annual? After deciding what herbs you research, ours is a hardiness zone 5. You'll be able to tell whether it's going to be a perennial or annual. So perennials, like I said, can seem like they're permanent. You plant them once and they just take off from there. You never have to touch them again. They're super easy. And when you talk about permaculture, oftentimes I think of perennials. Once they're in the garden, they will just keep spreading, which will crowd out weeds. You'll hardly ever have to weed. They're fantastic, and I almost try to go strictly with perennials because I'm sometimes a lazy gardener. But there are my favorite annuals, like this one here, Calendula. It's great for anything to do with the skin. I put it in all my oils, all my salves, chapsticks, everything you make. You'll want to use this. And it's a wonderful plant too, because it literally looks like that when it's growing. It's overabundance. Just keep picking off those flowers, putting them in a windowsill to dry, and then it will keep coming back and coming back and coming back and getting bigger and bigger. So if you're planting a garden using both perennials and annuals, leave spaces for the annuals as you're planting your garden. California poppy is a favorite of mine for also it looks a lot like calendula, and I use it for sleep aid. Yeah, so just do that. And then what else? I guess that's it for that. Some popular annual herbs: tulsi, borage, calendula, basil, rosemary in this zone is considered a annual, even though it is actually a perennial in most places. Rosemary, I would plant always in a container, in a beautiful terracotta plant, because you're going to want to bring it in for the winter. It will winter over in your house and you can continue to use it. I guess that's it. Perennials. And then this is echinacea. So echinacea, I wish I had a ton of land, because if I was actually going to use my own echinacea for herbal remedies, I would have to have a field like this. I've grown a lot of it, but it's so beautiful and I love the plant so much. I don't have it in me to dig them up and use their root, because it's the actual root of the plant that you use for your immune system. Yes. So bee balm, holly grew, echinacea, and bee balm together. Those two, that combination is like one of my all-time favorites. And boy, do the bees and the butterflies love these perennial herbs. Thyme is a perennial, lemon balm, all the mints and the sage are all considered perennials. Next slide. So the growth habits we can also go back to the color, texture, size. How does a plant take up space? Like Holly said with her story, that was such a great story to use as an example. You think it's gonna grow this big, and so you put extra ones in, and then in a year, 2 years, your second season, you have too much of it, which is always a good problem to have. So I guess you can't really, it's not an exact science. I'm sure these gardens here that they show, they have to dig out a lot of them and move them around as well, because they do just keep on going. Look at the plant. Is it spiky? Is it tall? Is it leggy? Is it broadleaf where it's huge? How does it fill up the space? And that should be a priority, because when you combine your garden together, you want it to look, well, I want it to look like this. I really do. So that's the growth habits. So look at images either in books or online of the mature plants that you're going to put in the ground. And that will give you a sense of how they take up their space, what their foliage looks like, and what colors their blossoms are. And then you can put it in your plan, put them in your plan. So now that you know what you'll be planting, put it all together in a sketch, play with the design until it feels right to all your senses. And it's extremely helpful to have that plan in hand when you're putting the garden in. And I guess that's it for now. All the resources here are just, this is the tiniest list of resources, but they're the ones that I've been using a lot lately. Your libraries, MacArthur Library, I'm sure has herbal books on how to make the medicine or how to grow, or even just on herb gardens. The herbal blogs that I really liked today were the Chestnut School of Herbal Medicine, the Herbal Academy, and Sage Mountain Botanical. I can't see that last word, but anyway, Sage Mountain, just look up Sage Mountain. She's in Vermont. It's Rosemary Gladstar's place. They all have recipes galore. They have information on the properties each plant has, on what organs they will help with, what systems in the body. Really great for education. The magazines, I love Herbalgram. I'm not exactly 100% sure if they still are in publication. They go in-depth science. It's a science magazine, so it can be quite dry reading, but if you really are into this and you really want to know how the herbs work on the body, not just what they do, but how they do it, the Herbalgram magazine is one of the best all-time resources to go to. Herb Quarterly has a lot of fun things in it. They usually showcase an herb or two in their magazine and have recipes and ways to grow them and garden plans. The Essential Herbal and Plant Healer are two that I just discovered today. I haven't really gone in depth, so I don't know exactly what they have to offer, but I liked what they had to say when I was starting to read about them. And botanical.com is not a magazine. I don't know what it's doing there. It's a website that is really great for researching herbs too. And they go way back to the traditional uses of the plants, the history and all that stuff. So the national herbalists and authors that I've read, and I highly recommend, are David Hoffman, Rosemary Gladstar, Christopher Hobbs. Stephen Buhner is one of my all-time favorites. David Winston, Guido Mace, Susan Weed, and Thomas Isley and Matthew Woods. All really great authors. They've written extensively about them. If you have any questions, just pick up one of their books and you will find it there. And there are a few local herbalists in the area. Pam Carr, who we all know and love from Biddeford Community Gardens, is a registered certified herbalist. She's not practicing right now, she said, but she is very open to for plants and any information you need on growing them or using them. And then there's Nisha. She lives in South Portland. Her business is called Wild Carrot Herbs. And Debbie Mercier of Limerick, her business is Greenwood Herbals. They both do consultations. So if you have a health problem and you want to sit down, have a cup of tea, these herbalists will sit down and tell you and go through your health history and help guide you to the herb that will help you. None of us are allowed to diagnose anything, but we can recommend certain herbs that have scientific backing for the problems that you may have. And the seed and plant companies I love, Strictly Medicinals has every herb on the planet in there. It's amazing. The most hard, difficult herbs to find, like L-campaign to grow or teasel, they have that. Johnny Seeds, they have quite a few, and they have some odd ones too, which is it was really refreshing to go through their catalog and see what they actually do offer. They don't have a ton, but they have some. Seed Savers, Fedco, the same thing. And Fedco is right here in Maine too. The local garden centers that I love are Snell's. Snell's usually has a wide array of herbs, huge selection, incredibly healthy plants. They stay healthy once you put them in the ground even, year after year after year. I highly recommend going to Snell's. COVID-19, however, cut their inventory back. When I went last year, I couldn't get some of the medicinal herbs that I was looking for, but I'm sure if you ask, they'll bring it back as soon as all this is over and they're up and running normally again. Krugel Farmer is also in Buxton. I don't know much about them. Holly gave me their name and I looked them up on the internet today and checked them out. They have a lot of native plants, which is really refreshing. If you want to plant a native plant garden, I would go to Krugel Farmer. O'Donnell's Nursery in Gorham is where I used to go when I had a big yard and I had a huge herb garden, because they do actually have quite a few seedlings, the plants themselves, of a wide variety. Not just your usual thyme, rosemary, parsley, but they have a lot of medicinals as well. And then Broadway Gardens, they have a lot of the standards. You have to look hard to find some of the herbs because a lot of the times they sell them just as ornamentals like echinacea and stuff. They don't promote them as herbs, but they have very healthy, wide variety too. And then there's, of course, endless resources on the internet. But my favorite is to have the books. I have shelves and shelves of herb books at home. They're just right there. You can touch them. You can bring them to the kitchen. You can open them up. You can spill things on them. It's great. Any other questions?
I was going to just share with you guys that my mother told me about a place years ago. She's gone now, but years ago, she and I went to a place in Mason, New Hampshire called Pickety Place. And they have incredible herb gardens. and they do a 5-course herbal luncheon in their little restaurant.
Wow.
And it's amazing. And the old Cape style home, or Cape home, that the restaurant is in was the what do you call it, the woman who wrote Little Red Riding Hood. She based her story off of that house.
Oh, wow.
It sits up at the top of the hill in Mason, New Hampshire. There's a big old, like 300-year-old maple tree that sits right there. Great little trails to the herb gardens. It's definitely worth it. I've been there several times. And I've also been turned on to Wild Seed Project out of Portland. You can go and pick up their seed packets right there at their offices. And they do very high quality wildflower seeds. So.
And you can make seed bombs
Yes.
with those wildflower seeds and then throw them into vacant lots. If you don't have any garden space of your own, take over some vacant lots.
Wendy, can I ask you a question? It's very random. So I have a friend who swears that cilantro tastes like soap.
Yes.
And apparently it's a thing. There's like to some people it tastes just horrible. I love cilantro. But every single time we eat anything that has cilantro in it, we end up in this big discussion about the taste of cilantro. Do you have any insight? Like, why does it taste terrible to some people?
Some people, I don't necessarily want to say they're allergic to it, but it's kind of like that. Yeah, because I have a friend, a really close friend, who also can't take cilantro. She wishes she could, but it tastes like soap to her. And it is a thing. And it has been labeled an allergy. I don't know if it is actually an allergy or not, but that's what I've heard through the grapevine.
So it's actually a genetic mutation. I am not sure. I don't remember if it's a genetic mutation that you can eat cilantro or can't eat cilantro. But it's a genetic mutation one way or the other, whether or not you can tolerate it. And there's degrees whether you can mildly taste the soap and tolerate it, or if it tastes like Dawn dish soap and you just can't.
I love it, and it's in my favorite food, like on the planet, are fresh spring rolls from the Thai place here, and they're it's just veggies and in the rice noodles or whatever that is, and they're my favorite. But they have cilantro in them. And every single time I order them, which is like at least once a week, I have to listen to, well, that has cilantro. Do you think they could get?
It'd be interesting to research what the genetic mutation, where it came from.
Yeah.
That would be very interesting.
It would be very
it's funny. I never could stand it when I was younger. In my 20s, I never really tried it, and I didn't like it. And now I love it. So my tastes have changed over the years, and I really now adore it.
I love it. So thank you so much, Wendy. This was great. Great information. And we have recorded the session, so it'll be available online for people to refer back to if they have questions or things that they want to touch upon during the talk. And Holly, did you want to take a moment and just tell us sort of some of the upcoming things that are going on with the community gardens?
Yes, actually next month, which is April 15th. Am I right on the date?
I don't have my calendar in front of me.
At 6:30, Cheryl Boulay and I believe Marsha Lord, both women are master gardeners and from the Saco Bay Gardening Club. They're going to be talking about container gardening. And then we have, I'm not quite sure about May, but June we'll be doing a virtual tour of Biddeford Community Gardens. So we'll be visiting Mission Hill Community Garden, the Pearsons Lane Children's Garden, the Williams Court Victory Garden and Community Garden, and the new under development garden at Rotary Park. And then in July, we have Frank Wertheim, who will be giving an introductory presentation on the Master Gardener Volunteer class, how to become a Master Gardener Volunteer, which is offered in early spring, late winter every year. Yes. And then we see you again, Wendy, when we do a little cooking and medicinal preparations with herbs in August.
Right, and hopefully we'll be outside and doing that live.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we can. We're I think we're going to be opening in a limited capacity, but it makes me feel hopeful. So
Yeah.
I'm hanging on to it.
Great.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening, especially to Wendy and Holly for putting this together. It was just lovely, and I'm going to try to figure out how I can get some fennel, which I don't have, but I'm eager to try it for my digestive health.
Okay.
So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. If you have any suggestions for this program or any other program, please reach out to me at the library, and we're happy to try to accommodate those needs. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.